Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How about you? And good
Doing
morning,
well.
Jasmine.
Good morning.
So, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I think my allergies are kicking in, but oh well.
Well, mine are. I forgot to take my allergy shot this weekend, so I need to get it done today. Well, y'all have any big plans for Easter? Easter
Um,
weekend?
no, just pretty much it's gonna be a regular Sunday, I guess. Go to church in the morning and then youth group in the evening, and trying not to end up
Till the
mowing in the afternoon. uh,
How old are your kids? They too old for Easter baskets now or not?
yeah, yes, they are. Sarah, my youngest, is 8, and yeah, 8. And they had an Easter egg hunt at the church last week, and she decided that she was too old. She didn't want to, and we're like, "Get the candy, girl, get the candy!" But no, she didn't do it.
Well,
She
you
let
can
me
still
down.
get her. You can still buy her candy to put in her basket.
Yeah, but that involves me spending money. Where this is free candy out there. All she has to do is walk out there and pick it up. But anyway, she broke my heart a little bit that day.
Yeah, she'll break it again here in a few more years.
Oh, I
Daddy
know.
and mommy will embarrass her to be near. She'll be embarrassed to be seen with daddy and mommy.
Yes,
They go
yes,
through
she
that
will.
stage, don't they?
Yes. Oh, one of my best friends at the church. He's telling me all the time, treasure every moment because it goes way too soon. Because his girls are both teenagers now. Uh,
Jasmine, I'm sure you never went through that stage, did you?
No, I go everywhere with my grandparents.
yeah. Well, grandparents they seem to get a pass where parents don't.
Well,
Yeah.
I live with my grandparents, so they're kind of like my parents. So
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But still, they still manage to get a little bit of a pass.
Yeah.
yeah, I guess.
Yeah. But, seriously.
All right, we'll
But
give Aaron a few more minutes. Jasmine, I really messed up today. We didn't have class here at Southwest, uh, and I did not know about it till I got here today. But y'all are, I thought I'd just go ahead and lecture anyway, since y'all are on your way. Aren't you lucky?
Very.
I know she appreciates that dedication you have there, Dwayne.
It sounded like it.
Yes,
Very.
I could hear it in her voice. Oh, yes.
I could hear it. She probably would have been a whole lot more excited had I canceled class. Um, I did get your those things you sent in last night, those assignments. I do not have them graded yet, Jasmine. Yours or Aaron's. Aaron sent me a bunch as well. Uh, but I will get them graded next week. I've got a I've got a horse show I'm going to. I'm leaving pretty early tomorrow morning, and so I've kind of in panic mode with this deal because I'm not in panic mode with my client's horse. I'm not worried about him. It's one of my horses. My wife's want me to show her, and she's not really ready for it. And I thought, well, I've got to take that horse up there. Might as well throw her on the trailer too, and I'll find, I'll put her in a class and just kind of run through it and get her exposed, and hope I don't get bucked off or make a fool out of myself. So I've been, but it's I'll be gone all weekend, so I and be showing English, excuse me, and Western events. So I was been trying to pack clothes and pack tack and feed, and everything. I'll finish, and tonight I got to bathe the horses, and after I ride them, and then I'll load up my saddles, and then in the morning all I got to do is throw them, and I got to pack my clothes. I got everything else I think packed up, and then I'll be good to go. Throw the horses on the trailer, and then throw the hay on there, and that as well. So anyway, it's going to be a busy weekend. I start showing 7:30 in the morning and be showing all day long, all the way through the last class on Saturday and Sunday. So I probably won't get home to about 1 or 2 o'clock Monday morning. So it'll be busy. I'll earn my money this weekend.
So Jasmine, that means he's going to be sleepy in class next Monday morning. Try not to take advantage of the situation.
That's right.
I'll try not to.
We pick on you, Jasmine, but I tell you what, you're a great student.
Thank you.
I was telling Tom this morning, you're Miss Faithful. You're always to class. Always get your assignments in, and you just tolerated being the only student in the animal production class with nobody else to answer questions and make comments. So anyway, that's all right. And I'd say Aaron had to go to work before he came to class again, don't you say?
Probably. I'm gonna text him to see if he's coming.
All right. And I've got that test for Evan in the library for him to take. I don't know if he's going to be able to make it this weekend to take it or not. I talked to him
Okay.
last night, Tom.
All right. Cool. So
Uh,
he's doing okay?
yeah, he's covered up, but it's that way with everybody in the springtime. You know how it is on the farm with spring.
Oh, yes.
And I tell you, I called Southern States. I was telling Aaron I've been waiting for them to come fertilize. Be nice to have that fertilize on my grass about 60 days before I have to mow it.
Yes.
Uh, but he said they're going to try to make it today. Their fertilizer truck's been broke down, both of them. So hopefully they'll come and spread that today. Uh, and if I don't get full effect of it on that first cutting, maybe it'll help my second cutting a little bit better. I don't know. That's a question for John.
Yeah.
What would be nice is to have the extra money to where I could take like maybe half of that fertilize and spread it on for the first cutting, and then take the second half and divide it between the second and third cuts. Have part of it spread after my first cut, and then the rest of it spread after my second cut.
Yeah, that would work. But he's
But
got the money, like you said.
yeah, that's extra money. So I don't know. I guess I'll just get it all dumped at once. I should have better yield from it this year, shouldn't I?
Maybe. I mean, we've got enough rain already that. But well, we had a
Well,
good amount of rain last spring, but then it just completely stopped on us. So
yeah,
who knows?
well, I guess I didn't tell you the whole story. Last year was the first year that hayfield was put in production, or that field was put into production.
Oh, okay. Well,
Spent,
yeah.
yeah, I spent the winter digging up rock. I had a backhoe in there. My rock buyers were up there getting rock. And so instead of them paying me for the rock they hauled out, I said, you can have all the rock you can carry plus one if you'll clean off this field for me so I can hay it. And so they went in there and they dug up all those rock. The only rock left in there is a rock too big for their equipment to move. They're probably connected to China. And so I had a lot of bare ground, or spots, a lot of spots of bare ground. And I sowed it in grass, pulled fertilizer or pulled soil samples, got it fertilized, and and put it into production. And the first cutting of hay, my square baler didn't work, so I had to get my neighbor to round bale it. And there were 4x5 rolls, about 1,000 pounds, and we got 8 rolls off of it. We were 8.5, and then the second cutting, excuse me, my square baler still didn't work, so I had my neighbor roll it again, and we got 12 rolls out of the second cutting. And the third cutting, my square baler still didn't work. And we ended up, my neighbor rolled it, and we got another 12 rolls out of that third cutting. So we ended up, typically you don't get as much hay that second, third cutting as you do your first cutting. But I think where that grass came on and I had some timely rains, and those bare spots filled up with grass, I think that was the key. But I'm hoping I'll get more this first cutting. And I got pretty upset. My wife got really upset. I was pretty upset. My wife was furious with their square baler because the dealer, he'd sold it to us, promised it would be field ready, and it never did work. And so we worked on it all summer long, thought we had it fixed, and it never did work. And he took it back up to the shop, and I think they figured out this time what's wrong with it, and they're supposed to have it fixed. But I still don't have it back yet. But I want to unroll the round bale or two and bale it up and see if it actually works. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But my wife would be
Well,
pretty
I just
mad
want to
too.
get my money back. What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, my wife would have been pretty mad too if we bought it and it didn't work. Oh,
I've got a little bit of tolerance. My wife doesn't have very much at all, but my tolerance is now gone. 'Cause I've done everything I know to do to it, and I got another guy to look at it, and he said, "Oh, this is what's wrong with it." And then the tractor dealership said, "Well, you got to fix it on your own." And I said, "No. You told me it would be field ready. You're going back on your word." And he looked at me and his jaw dropped. He goes, "You know what this is going to cost me to fix it?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. Because I already went to Messick.com and priced all these parts. I know what the parts are going to cost you to fix it." He wasn't very happy with me.
no, he wouldn't. Well, I can't blame you a bit.
But, that's what he told me. He needs to hold true to his word. All right.
Yes.
Jasmine, you heard back from,
He's here.
he's here. Okay, good deal. All right, Aaron, you doing all right today?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Good. Well, I found out what southern states hadn't spread my fertilizer yet. Their trucks broke down, both of them. So they're supposed to have
Well,
one fixed yesterday. He said he'll try to
that's
get
not
to it
that's
today.
not good this time of the year.
Oh no, but that stuff happens,
Things happen.
and it it's just beyond everybody's control. It just happens. All right. So, yet Tuesday, we started chapter 14 about discipline. And we talked about, being an effective supervisor is, they have the ability for the workers to reach their potential and to grow. But it's also true if they don't. You may be an ineffective supervisor. And we said if there's a problem with discipline, whether it's production or misbehavior, you got to look at yourself first. And Tom pointed out that 90% of the accidents happen are supervisors' faults. So look to yourself first. We don't want to set up people to fail. And we have to have good communication with their workers. And then we talked about several different reasons for poor performance. And we talked about effective discipline should be based on just cause. And we talked about developing fair rules. And then different degrees of punishment, such as communicating the standard, voicing your disapproval, doing a verbal warning, doing a written warning, doing a suspension, and then finally a termination if the behavior continues. And we said a useful guide in determining fairness of consequence for rule violation is to ask yourself, what would I do if my best employee was involved? Then we talked about a progressive disciplinary approach. That's basically the concept of having stiffer penalties for more serious violations and for repeat offenses. And then we said we want to be able to deal with problems before they become serious. You want to informally talk about things before it becomes a problem. Again, communication is the key to a successful disciplinary process. And the rules must be known by those who apply the rules and by those who are subject to the rules. And that's where we ended. So, yesterday in our animal production class, we talked about 7 traits of successful farmers and ranchers, or 10 traits. And the interesting thing was how it related back to some of these things we talked about in HR class with communication and listening. I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know. What do you think about that, Jasmine? You think you thought you were being in HR class again at times?
Yeah, sometimes.
So, these things that we've been discussing here lately with interpersonal skills and listening and conflict resolution, it plays into everything we do. And, when we think about discipline and if we have to, determination, communication, interpersonal skills, and conflict resolution are of utmost importance. So, and we want to be, treat people with respect during this whole deal. So, at times, before you do anything, and we talked about some examples about the guy being late. 2 different scenarios. One, ended up his kid was sick and he was at the hospital all night, and another one, the guy just overslept, watched the ball game and overslept. Two different reasons for being late. Uh, so before you do anything, conduct a fair investigation. Always listen to the accused employee's story first. Hear their side before you do anything. Uh, and this kind of goes back to the example of that milker, of those milkers, where the woman accused one of her coworkers of sexual harassment. It turned out that they'd went on a date and the guy didn't ask her out again, and she was offended. So get the accused person's story first before you do anything, because it may not be anything to take action on. Also, by getting the accused person's story first, or it prevents destroying trust. And we've talked a lot about trust between the supervisor and the owner on a farm and the employees. You don't ever want to betray that trust. Once you do, you're not going to get it back. And then you're going to have several other issues revolving around that. Also, by listening to the accused person's story or his side of things, it reduces tensions and emotions. Always keep in mind there's three sides to every story. The accuser, you got the accusers, the defenders, and the truth. And sometimes, that truth lies in between those two stories sometimes. So, there's three sides to every situation. So try to keep that in mind, and try to come to the truth. But you don't want to destroy trust, and um, you want to try to reduce tension and emotions, because it can get pretty tense, can get emotional, depending what the situation is. And always listen to the accused employee story first before you do anything. Now, when you're doing this investigative interview, try to see things from the employee's perspective. Try to look at the situation through their eyes. Uh, and that may help you come to a better understanding of what's happening. Now, there are some things that you need to keep in mind. Uh, do that the the accused person does have a right to have a coworker with him during this interview. Whether they exercise that right or not, but they do have the right to have a coworker with them. Now, if they feel falsely accused or being singled out, management's picking on them, wanting to get rid of them, that may be one reason they have somebody with them as a witness, or it could be for moral support. Another reason they could have somebody with them is if they feel the supervisor is being unethical, if they don't have any trust in the supervisor, or the supervisor has a tendency to be verbally abusive. So they do have that right to have somebody with them during your investigative interview. Can you record this interview?
I think you could.
You can, as long as you have the employee's permission. And I would, okay? Because you need all the documentation you can. Because if it ends up going into a termination, you want to be, you want everything documented because people get upset. They can retaliate through legal means. So you want to be, you want everything documented. So you can record it as long as you have their permission. And this is hard to do, guys, but avoid jumping to conclusions. Stay neutral. Don't draw any conclusions until your complete investigation's done. And the big thing, again, you have to listen. You don't do the talking other than to ask the questions that you need to find out. You listen. The more you listen, a lot of times the more they'll talk and you can find out more about it. So listen. Um, and if you have to assign a consequence or disciplinary measure, assign justice with mercy. Okay? Don't go overboard if you can help it. Has any of y'all ever been involved in one of these investigations type deal?
No.
I have. Uh, when I was working at the Virginia Employment Commission, I was involved in two of them. And um, there was this lady there. She was not to be trusted. Okay? Um, she would take a knife and stab you in the back to make herself look good any moment she could get. And if she didn't like you, you better watch your P's and Q's. Or if she felt threatened by you, you know, you better watch your P's and Q's, have all your T's crossed and I's dotted, because she's going to do what she can to get rid of you so you don't take her job. And the first one I was in, there at the Virginia Employment Commission, we had a lot of part-time employees. We had a few full-time. Most people were part-time. And our managers were really good people. They understood we had to make a living, and they were real flexible with their scheduling, so that we could have another part-time job. And this one person had a part-time job selling real estate. And uh, this person was really liked. Great, friendly, outgoing person, very trustworthy. And this one woman that you didn't trust, she had it in for her because she was well liked, and the untrustworthy person, the backstabber, wasn't. So she was jealous. So she filed a complaint that this one person was doing their real estate business at work. And uh, and she didn't file it to the manager. She went above the manager's heads to Richmond to do that. And so people from Richmond came in to do an investigation. And I was questioned about it. I told the truth. You know, I wasn't going to lie. I wasn't going to lie to protect her, and I wasn't going to lie to not protect her. But, you know, because I worked with her. Uh, and, you know, nothing came of it. she wasn't fired. And I don't know if there was really any reason for that investigation. When I was questioned, they asked me just some basic questions, and I answered them. And they asked me and said, "Well, how often do you see her on the phone?" And I said, "Well, she's on the phone quite a bit, just like I am. We field phone calls." And they said, "Well, how much of it is business related to the Virginia Employment Commission, and how much of it's related to her to the real estate job?" And I looked at the guy and I said, "I don't know, because I'm doing my job and I'm not nosing in on her, on that woman's business. I don't listen to her phone calls. She does her job when she's here, to the best of my knowledge. If she has private phone calls, everybody has private phone calls every once in a while. I don't know how much she has. I don't know if they're excessive. I couldn't tell you, because I'm doing my job." And that was the truth. We all had our little cubicles and we did our jobs. We didn't know what the other person was doing. So, and, I don't know if the woman did that or not. I couldn't tell you. I didn't know anything about it till I got called in to be questioned. But, you know, the best of my knowledge, nothing was ever done about it. It just kind of went away because I don't think they found any evidence on it. And then, what was it? A few years later, somebody filed a complaint against that backstabber. And I got questioned about her as well. And again, I just told the truth. You know, most time it was, I don't know. I was just doing my job. I couldn't tell you what she does. And that's true. I don't know. I try to stay out of it. Wasn't none of my business. Uh, so nothing was done about it. Nothing ever came of it. So I don't know if she was guilty or not. But I have been involved in that. Uh, but you know, I just did my job. I didn't try to stir up crap or get involved in the other stuff. So I don't know. I didn't know what was going on until I got called in and asked about it. But anyway, avoid all false accusations at all levels. Um, Now, if you've got to discipline or terminate an employee for dishonesty, for theft, sexual harassment, assault, threats of violence, or working under the influence of drugs or alcohol, you better be guilty. You better be certain of the employee's guilt. You got to make sure they're guilty before you do anything. Because if they're not, it's going to come back to bite you. The other thing you want to try to do, and again, this is almost impossible, but you've got to try, is to maintain confidentiality. People are going to talk, they're going to spread rumor, uh, but you, as a supervisor, better keep your mouth shut and don't talk to anybody other than those you have to talk to about the situation. Because they'll I think the book gives an example of a lady coming in to talk to the supervisor to file a complaint, and she said, "But I want this kept. I don't want anybody to know about it. If I tell you something, you promise you won't tell." You can't say yes to that because it's one of those deals that it depends. Because if it's serious enough, you're going to have to do an investigation. If it was a sexual harassment, a threat, a violence, or an assault, um, theft, whatever, you're going to have to do an investigation. And you cannot say you may, you know, you may have to do an investigation and their name may have to come out. About all you can say to this is say, we will maintain as much, confidentiality, but if this leads to a big investigation, um, you know, your name may have to come out that they may have a right to know on who accused them, or they do have a right to know. So we may not be able to uphold that. We can't tell who. We may just have to tell, but we will do our best to maintain confidentiality. As I said, it's almost impossible, but you do have to try. Again, document everything. Uh, and keep in mind the human factor. This class is called Human Resources in Agriculture. Uh, Unfortunately, humanity is not a whole lot. We don't see a lot of humanity in human resources anymore. HR departments, basically, they want to protect the company. They have attorneys. They're quick to discipline. They have a bunch of rules and decrees, and they want to protect the company's assets and protect the administration. And humanity's almost out of it now. There's a rule for everything, it seems. So try to keep the humanity in it. The other thing we want to do is be consistent. We want to be consistent, but also we want to be flexible. With that just cause, we need to be flexible and using we mentioned using creative punishments instead of a punitive type punishment. But we have to be consistent. Not all infractions are the same, such as being late. This kid was in the hospital versus the guy that slept in. Or, we're all in rural areas, right? Most of us have some type of livestock on the side, right? A lot of people have a small herd of cattle or something, right? Tom has a farm. I got a farm. Aaron, y'all farm?
Yes, sir. We got a big farm.
Okay. Aaron's got a farm. When you're dealing with animals, you know, if you're able to have, your company doesn't have a policy of having another job, moonlighting, uh, man, it's nothing unusual to be going to work and or I shouldn't say it's not nothing unusual, but it's not unexpected. It does happen. And you got something wrong that you got to take care of. You got a cow having problems with calving. You got a horse cut up. You got a hole in the fence and the cows got out because a tree fell on it in the storm last night. That stuff happens. Came in one day to teach, started teaching. One of the students got a phone call. He says, Dwayne, how's my mom? The pigs got out and they're running down the road. I got to go home. You got animals, things are going to happen. So you got kids, they're going to get sick. And you may have to, they're going to have school functions. Emergencies come up. Just remember, infractions aren't exactly the same. You know, may have to leave work early, may come in late. Uh, but what's the reason? Always listen to the accused side first. So, things you need to consider: what's the severity of the incident? What's the employee's attitude? What's the previous history of that employee? You know, are they always on time and every once in a while they're late, or are they consistently late? Sometimes they're even later. You know, what's the attitude? What's the history? Uh, what's the severity of the incident? Are there any mitigating circumstances? Now, you know, a lot of times we just don't, you know, depending on what's going on, uh, a lot of times managers have exceptions, uh, or they'll looking at it from an employee's point of view. Oh, Bob can get by with murder, but nobody else can. Has any of us ever experienced that? Well, if I did that, what they just did, I'd be fired. What your coworker just did. Uh, that plays on, if you haven't experienced it, you probably will. Uh, that plays on the morale, makes people don't think you're being fair. So if there's always going to be exceptions to the rules, but if you have an excessive number of exceptions, that's going to diminish the efforts to achieve fairness, and it's going to affect the morale of the people. So when you're making rules and policies for your operation, try to make them with the best employee in mind. Because hopefully the people we're hiring, we go through these processes that we've been doing all semester long with your assignments. You're hiring the best employees, right? They're the best for your situation. So make rules, give them the benefit of the doubt. You spend a lot of time and money to hire them. Hopefully you're hiring the best. And make the rules with the best employees in mind. So with this discipline deal, we've done our investigation. If we've come to the conclusion that we're going to have to administer some type of discipline. Use corrective action. Don't use a punitive action. Um, so listen to the accused, uh, and before you do your discipline, kind of think of it as a sandwich. All right, the disciplinary sandwich, as Dave Ramsey puts it. Y'all ever listen to him on the radio? His show about financial management and money and stuff. I'm sure Tom does, don't you, Tom?
Oh, I don't listen to him on the radio, but I've watched his stuff, and we did I led a thing at a church a couple years ago doing his financial peace thing.
Oh yeah. I tell you what now. I read the book Financial Peace, and I read his book Dumping Debt, and I can't remember which one it was. One of the book opens up that says, "I'm not going to tell you anything that your grandmother didn't tell you." And that statement was so true in our household. Now, it it wasn't what my grandmother told me, it was what my daddy told me. My dad's a CPA. My dad watches every dime. My dad is a firm believer in budgets. My dad's a firm believer in do not go into debt unless it's absolutely necessary. Uh, he said there's only two things you ought to go in debt for: your first vehicle and your house. And that's it. Nothing else. Everything, the second vehicle is a luxury item. Everything, you never go in debt for a luxury item. But he was so spot on with the stuff my dad had taught me. So, you know, it was kind of a good, interesting for me. Uh, but anyway, so Dave Ramsey, sorry for my sidetrack. You guys ought to read his books. You want to learn financial management for your personal finances and stuff. What you don't learn, or you'll find out he'll reiterate a lot of your business classes that you have here and puts it into your home usage. I do recommend those two books. But anyway, Dave Ramsey calls it I think he calls it the disciplinary sandwich. And I think that's in the book Entrepreneurship or Christian Entrepreneurship or something like that. Something about leadership. Uh, but you point out the good qualities of your employee before you get into the disciplinary procedures. All right? Tell them the good stuff. And then you talk about the discipline. And then after you talk about the discipline, you go back and you reiterate their good stuff and the value they have to the company. You kind of sandwich the bad between the good. The old song from Disney's, was it Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down? Kind of that type of theory. You want to stress during this disciplinary process that it's not personal. It's just against a certain behavior. You do not want to create enemies. Especially if you have a farm and you get one of your employees ticked off at you, man, they can wreak havoc to you. All right. They know where your fuel tanks are. They probably have a key to get fuel out. They know where your tractor keys are. They know where all your equipment is. They know where all your tools are. Things can get sabotaged. Things can get stolen. So you don't want to create any enemies. So stress that it's against the behavior and it's nothing personal. Communication is critical. Do not, and I repeat, do not leave any room for any miscommunication. You want them to understand fully what's going on. They can't misinterpret what you're saying. Be very specific about that wrong behavior. Be clear what the employee must do to improve it. Advise the employee of the official nature of the discipline. And tell them that about future consequences if there's no improvement. If this behavior continues, it could lead to termination. So be specific what they did wrong. Be clear what they must do in order to improve it. whether it's a production deal or a behavior deal or rule infraction deal. Uh, Advise them of the official nature of this disciplinary process and inform the employee about future consequences if there's not any improvement. What I did learn when I was at the unemployment office, a lot of times people will come in, or not a lot of times, people will come in and file for unemployment. And, that's basically, if they were separated from their employment due to a lack of work, they just, and they were eligible to receive unemployment benefits, they just got unemployment benefits. It was not a big deal. And so they filled out the application, and a copy was sent, or not a copy of the whole application, but a questionnaire was sent to the employer, basically asking if it was just the separation was due to a lack of work. And if they both had the same answer that it was due to a lack of work, unemployment benefits started. Now, if it was a separation of work due to a termination, like a firing, then what they did at the unemployment office was to schedule a phone interview, with a hearings officer. And so they would have the hearing officer and the claimant, the person filing for unemployment, on the phone, and also the employer. And they would try to find out the reason the person was fired. So, or if they quit. But if it was a firing, one of the things that I learned about that you need to protect yourself on is, was the employee warned before you dismissed them? If they weren't warned before they were dismissed, they got their unemployment benefits. And not only did they have to be warned, they needed to be warned 3 times. So that would be the oral or the verbal warning, the written warning, and then either a suspension or another warning of some sort. And the employer had to have documentation of all this, even of the verbal warning. So document to protect yourself, because if you have to pay unemployment tax, FUTRA and SUTRA, if you're a farmer, and we went over this when we did the compensation assignment, if you're a farmer, you're exempt from it, as long as you don't pay more than $20,000 every 3 months in a quarter. But in Aaron's situation, where he has a farm store, he's going to have to pay it. And if you pay, if somebody files unemployment files a claim for unemployment and they're awarded unemployment benefits, the amount, or that, you're going to have to pay more unemployment insurance as an employer. So it's going to cost you more money. That makes sense? So make sure you document everything. Make sure that if a person is going to be terminated, they know it's coming. It's not a surprise. They've been warned. They've been warned again. They've been disciplined or warned a 3rd time prior to the termination. So always make sure they know, and always document. So when you're doing this disciplinary deal, you need to ask yourself some questions. Does the tone of your voice and the substance of the warning show that you care about the worker? Or are you coming across condescending? Or are you coming across that you really care? And the tone of your voice can make a big difference. The tone of your voice will, how the employee takes it, either that you care or you're being condescending. And it could have a difference in how they respond, whether they improve and that's the end of it, or whether the behavior continues. The comments, the positive comments that you make to the employee, telling them the good stuff, are they sincere? And are they really positive? Is the language and the words that you use, is it clear that anyone can understand it? Are you using big complicated words? Are you using words that could have two meanings so they could take it a second way and don't think it's that bad? What's your phrasing? What's your words? And are you using all four of those disciplinary warning elements with the verbal, the written, the suspension, and the termination? Or some type of, maybe not a suspension, but maybe some type of disciplinary action, whatever it is you come up with. But are you using using four elements? If possible, you want to be like Barney Fife and nip it in the bud before it becomes a problem. You notice somebody coming in habitually late, or playing around, or not doing their job enough, or making comments that probably aren't appropriate, but nothing's been said yet, but it's going to happen. Pull them aside. Talk to them about it before it becomes a problem. Nip it in the bud, as Barney would say. And you can be informal about it, but try to curb that behavior before it becomes a problem. Now, when we think, I've used the word, a punitive type punishment, or punitive action for discipline. If that action you take, or your actions when you're doing a discipline process, if you're coming across as intimidating, aggressive, unprofessional, provocative, you apply it hastily, at the drop of a hat, or it's out of line with the offense that they did, then it's punitive. Kind of like, in my mind, a good example was when I was telling you guys that job I took as a feed salesman, and the guy got mad at me and called me a screw up. And in my mind, he was being very aggressive. He's being provocative, and I got defensive. I really thought he was coming across. I got defensive, and all I could think of was to say yes, sir, in a very smart, eloquent tone. So he knew it could mean several things, but he knew I was smart enough to say yes, sir, so he couldn't get me for cussing him out. and I thought he was going to come across the car and attack me, literally. And so I changed my stance, my physical stance, to a defensive stance to protect myself. And I stared him down. Whether I was right or not, I don't know. It's what I did. I thought he was coming after me. Uh, but it was not, I'd hate to work for that guy. He was he tried to intimidate people. Uh, and he, he was aggressive. I mean, being aggressive in your job is one thing. Being aggressive to your subordinates is another. He was always threatening people with dismissal if they didn't bump up their sales. I saw that in that first day there, the way he talked to his other sales, the way he talked to the sales staff. Uh, and it's just not a place I wanted to be uh, or work for somebody like him. So anyway, don't be punitive. Don't come across as aggressive, intimidating, provocative, unprofessional, um, and don't cuss them out. That's very unprofessional. Uh, so be nice, be polite, be respectful, but again, use language they can't misunderstand. Now, I know you guys haven't been in the workforce a long time, but when you do get there, you're going to see things. Uh, a lot of the things we've discussed that you'll see it with other employees and managers, and get out, you'll see stuff. And one of the things you'll probably see if you're not working for yourself, there's going to come a time when the boss is going to say, "Hey, we got we're we're going to enforce our rules big time." They made an abrupt change in their rule enforcement. And usually that happens after serious problems occurred or costly problem. Uh, and they've gotten some type of, it's caused them to increase their commitment towards enforcing the rules. Uh, Whether it was, Tom said a lot of accidents, 90% of the accidents are the supervisor's fault. It could have been that. It could have been misbehavior. It could have been anything. But there's been something that cost the company money, or it was a very serious problem, and they have changed their commitment toward enforcing the rules, and they're stepping it up big time. And it's an abrupt change. A lot of times you'll see that abrupt change when they bring a new supervisor on board. So you'll just see that sometimes. Most cases, if it's when you're doing if it's something major, like sexual harassment, racial discrimination, violence, threats of violence, worker being under the influence of drugs or alcohol, don't terminate on the spot. You can do an investigative suspension. You can suspend them while an investigation is going on and do a thorough investigation. Um, Effective discipline, it can protect your enterprise. It can protect the supervisor that enforces the rules, and it can protect the other workers. So it You need to have an effective disciplinary process. Uh, do you have any questions or comments or anything with the discipline? Aaron or Jasmine, y'all have any questions or comments?
Can't think of any.
Tom, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Which I had
I don't.
something I had something a couple minutes ago. I'm trying to remember what it was. Uh,
Yeah, I was wanting to ask you if you had anything you wanted to add or a story you wanted to share, but I don't want to throw you under the bus and put you on the spot and throw you under the bus type deal. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, no, but just the etch a sketch in my mind is shaking easily. But
I
uh,
know how that goes.
yes. I'll start with the second thing first, and hopefully I'll remember the first one. But it's not, you talked about, for agriculture, if you let somebody go, you got to do it nice, or they can come back and steal your fuel and vandalize your stuff. Well, in the non-agriculture or non-farming world, it's sort of, you know, another thing to think about is you don't want to tick this person off because if nothing else, they still are a potential customer. If you're working for Southern States or something like that, you're, running a feed store or something like that, this person is a potential customer. And if you don't handle letting that person go well, not only will that person stop buying from you, but he's going to be mouthing off about your company to other potential customers, and you may end up losing some sales. Um, but the other thing is I remember, when you're disciplining somebody, start out with I understand you're having, especially, your drug use, alcohol, whatever, that kind of stuff. It's like you start out with or even if they're coming in and they're in the middle of going through a divorce and they're distracted and they're not working up to their full productivity, you know, you have to say something if they're not meeting the minimum goals. And so, but when you have that conversation with them, you need to, tell them, you know, I'm here to help you. I'm not trying to be mean to you, but look, I know you're struggling through problems, but you still got to get paid. And in order for you to keep getting paid, you still have to meet the minimum goals. So you've got to, I'm here to help you to keep successful, but you may have to set some things aside, or you got to, change things, but really emphasize that you're on their side because, they're using you to make them money, but you're using them to make you money too. And the reason why you had that person in the first place was hopefully because you'd interviewed them and they were a good worker that's been doing good work for you. And if they're having whatever disciplinary issue or something, you want to straighten it up so they can continue to be a good worker. So, that's sort of the attitude that you need to come in there. You're trying to fix something that's good that's temporarily broken. So you shouldn't be going in there with anger and that kind of stuff, and which is what Dwayne was talking about, your attitude when talking to them. How are you coming across? Because
Yeah, you know,
it should have been a good worker in the first place. If they weren't a good worker in the first place, then you messed up by hiring them in the first place, and that's there again on you.
that's right. Uh, and that's one thing you'll find that you're not going to separate people's, I don't know how you say it, feelings or moods, or they're not going to be able to separate it from home and not. They're going to bring their problems with them. And if they're going through a divorce, guys, they're going to be down. And more than likely their productivity is going to go down. They're going to be different. Or if they've lost a loved one, that mourning process of losing a loved one takes a while. They've got to find a new normal in their life. And if you know they're going through something like that, show extreme compassion. They'll be back to you. You know, I mean, I know you got to think about the productivity and stuff, but and they've still got to do their job. And but man, you got to be compassionate. I've seen my wife lose her brother, and man, it took about a year for her to get over that. I mean, she still gets sad over it. Don't get me wrong, but they were really close, and um, I don't know if it affected her productivity at work. I know it affected her at home, um, but it took a while for her to find that new normal. And whether it's at work or at home, you have to be compassionate. I've had friends that go through divorce. It's almost like a death. Uh, so be compassionate, like Tom said. Sorry, Tom. I shouldn't have interrupted you there.
Oh, no, no, I was done.
But be compassionate on situations like that. And I know people that have substance abuse, uh, and it's boy, it'd be tough to have them working for me. I'm not gonna lie to you. They're great people, um, but you know, I just I haven't had to deal with that. Um, I've had to deal with some, but not a whole lot. When I was a manager at Stewart's, there was this guy there. He lived on the farm, and he had another job, but he would get fired from that job routinely because he failed his drug test. And they'd wait a little bit and they'd hire him back. And when drug testing came around again, he'd get fired again. So it was kind of a revolving door with him. So when he was off of work, he would work for us on the farm. And I tell you, I wouldn't have dealt with him. Uh, and I told my boss, I told my manager, I said, man, just don't even fool with him. He can't get out of bed because he lays up and does dope all night. And then he comes to work, he's stoned or high or I don't know what he was doing. And when he's clean, he's fun to be around and he does good work. But he's not trustworthy, and most of the time he's strung out. I mean, that was kind of on a intermittent type deal with him, and I was the one that had to deal with him. And you know, if I didn't go wake him up out of bed to come to work, he wouldn't come to work, and I didn't do it. I ain't gonna lie to you. I didn't want to fool with him, and I didn't go wake him up, and but I just didn't want to fool with him. Whether that was right or wrong, it was above my head. I couldn't make the decision, not to hire him, but I could make the decision whether I wanted to drag his butt out of bed every morning or not when he was fired from his other job, and I didn't do that. Robert come in, he'd swing in, and go, well, where's old such and such today? I said, I guess he laid up last night doing drugs because he didn't come in today. And he'd go wake him up at noon or 1 o'clock and drag him out of bed, tell him to get to work if he wanted a job. Work the rest of the day. Why he dealt with him, I don't know. But it is what it is. The owner of the farm liked him, and I guess that's the reason. And I don't know why he liked him. He wasn't nothing but a thief. Still is a thief, uh, and a liar, and a druggie. And he's still there to this day. But I don't know. I wouldn't deal with it. He'd be gone. I mean, you're in a, he's he, operating equipment, stuff like that, you get somebody killed. And it's just too dangerous of a situation. Um, but he didn't even try to get better. Heck, even now he grows it there on that farm. I kid you not, he has his pot patches scattered throughout up there on that mountain.
Oh my.
Yeah, the state police went in there one day, raided the place. They couldn't find it. And you thought that the boss would have got rid of him then. No, wasn't any evidence. Go figure. I don't know. They like him for some reason, and I don't know why. He steals from them. Not only steals time because he's halfway high and wastes a lot of time, smokes dope on the job, but he also steals from them. So, I don't know. I'd ran him off. I didn't ever put him on full time the way, when I was there 20 years ago. But anyway, just avoid those people if you can. Some of them are really good people. They just have an issue. But he's not one of the good ones. But anyway, we're out of time, guys. I hope you guys have a good Easter weekend. And I'll see y'all Tuesday.
Okay.
All right. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too, Aaron. Tom, I wanted
Yes.
to ask you. I was thinking about putting the final on Blackboard. Would that be good to do or not?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Um, uh, yeah, 'cause like Aaron and Jasmine, if they don't have laptops, which well they both do, but if they're dead, they can take it in a computer lab down the hallway. Um, and I just have to get it to Keith or get him to take it here. So
Because
that would work.
I don't know. We've got a lot of online students, and they have jobs, and I know that they're not going to be able to come in to take the exam at the scheduled time. I don't know what your school's policy is about them taking it early. I know our school policy, the in-class students, you're not allowed to give the final exam early. How that works with the online students, I don't know. I've got to talk to my dean about it, but I'm almost thinking if I have it available during exam week and they're working, they should be able to take it at their convenience, after hours. Um,
Yeah, we don't have a specific policy for that, so I'd say go ahead, make it happen.
all right,
The worst they can do is tell us no for next time.
that's true. And it may be easier to ask forgiveness instead of permission, but I don't think I'll ask her. I'm not going to do anything to get in trouble on this. It's not worth it. But I'll see how that is. But I think it would be easier if it was online, especially for the online students.
Yeah, which I'm even thinking for my seated classes, where I've got, y'all, people, Patrick Henry, and then multiple different sites here. For these ag classes, I might start putting all of my tests in Blackboard. The only weird thing about it, as far as my seated students, we'd either have to go and take it in a computer lab or they'd have to take it outside of class time. I haven't figured that out yet, but
Yeah.
it'd
Well,
be a whole lot. It'd be a whole lot easier for where I have to send it out to the 35 different places.
I was kind of thinking of that. That's why I started doing that more. John didn't like me doing it when I tried it before. But, if I let them do it during class time, they can go to the computer lab to do it, or bring their laptops in if they have a laptop, or they can do it outside of class, So because it is a password, I do make it password protected. So you know they get the password at the testing center to get in
Yep.
there. So it is being monitored, and I don't know. Then you don't have to grade them because I know you got enough on your plate as it is. So
Well, I
I
need the
was just
gray
wanting to
hair,
have
so
your
that's fine.
thoughts
So,
about that.
but no, because I've been seeing you doing all those tests this semester, and I've been kind of like half liking it. But of course, it's a pain to make the tests, but once they're
Well,
made, it's
you
easier.
know, I don't know about at your college, but Mike here at Southwest, they have a program that will convert a Word document into a test on Blackboard.
Oh, Respondus?
Maybe. I
Yeah,
don't know.
we.
I put my exam, I make up my exam and I put it on a Word document and then I send it to the Blackboard administrator and a couple hours later, if he's not busy, when he gets to it, he runs it through that program and it's up and going on Blackboard.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
Um,
it's actually, it's not any harder for me. He does all the work. I just give him the electronic copy of the exam.
all right. Um, I guess you just have to make sure that the thing is formatted correctly, but okay. I mean, it's something I'll play with. I don't know. But I
I don't
don't
know.
have
I
some.
mean, that our Blackboard administrator does it for us. I don't know if yours would. You got it made.
Oh, no, ours would not, but she's got too much other stuff she's doing. Um, but there is a program that I've used as far as to make test banks and whatever to put into Blackboard, and it like say if I have it formatted correctly, I might be able to stick it in there, and then I just have to go back into it and tell it what the right answers are. But anyway, I'll have to play with it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, have a fun and
Get
safe and
cut off.
interesting weekend, and
All right,
ride a
y'all
horse for
too.
me.
What's
Yep.
that?
I said ride a horse for me.
Hey, anytime you want to ride, just come on down, Tom. I'll put you on something.
That's what I'm afraid of. Uh, but if I went, my daughter would have to go, and then we'd never come back.
I wouldn't put you on anything that would hurt you.
You don't know me
I
well
would.
enough, then.
I wouldn't put you on that mother-in-law horse.
Thank you for that.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
Okay, you too.